Hello and welcome to the Engineering studio here at a busy Itron Utility Week. And I'm joined now by Emily Yates, who's the Deputy Director of Envision Charlotte. And Emily, first of all, welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Thanks for joining us. And the macro theme of our discussion is going to be smart cities. The clue is in the name of your company. We're going to be talking about Charlotte.
Yeah.
But on that note, can you give us a brief overview about Envision Charlotte, how it came about, what it's trying to do, and then we'll dive into the value it's trying to create in terms of a smart city program within Charlotte.
Certainly. So Envision Charlotte is a small 501c3 located in Charlotte. Our mission is to really help make the city of Charlotte a living laboratory where...
For our international viewers, what's a
Yes.
501c3?
Oh, sorry, a not-for-profit.
Okay.
An NGO.
Right.
I always forget about that, but thank you for clarifying. So our mission is to make the city of Charlotte a living laboratory to deploy new innovative technologies and first-of-their-kind programmings that really help make Charlotte a more sustainable, resilient, and economically competitive city. All of our programming is measurable and scalable. We do this because we believe that we need to know what our impact is on the city. So if a project can't be measurable, we aren't going to do it. But we also believe that cities can learn from each other, and that not only should they be scalable within the city of Charlotte, so our pilots being scalable, but also so they can be replicated to other cities. Our work focuses on 4 programmatic pillars. Energy is the one that we were kind of born from, and that was based on a program that we developed 5 years ago in partnership in a public-private plus partnership, so the plus being utilities and universities, to drive energy consumption in our uptown, which is our downtown, but it's on a hill, so we like to call it an uptown. We work to drive energy efficiency programs to reduce energy consumption by 20% over 5 years. We were really successful in that.
You got to 19% if
we did
I
get to
remember
19%.
From our call, right.
We're very proud of that. That equates to $26 million in build energy savings for the 61 buildings that participated in that program. It equates to 11,000 cars being removed from the road in terms of CO2 emissions reduced, and it was equivalent to the annual to powering 10,000 homes annually in terms of energy save. So really quite successful.
Yeah, could we dance around that program a little bit?
Sure.
So there were 61 businesses that you first approached. I mean, how did it come about? Where I'm trying to get to is people are always looking for, how do I get this program up off the ground? How do I get traction? How do I show the business case? How do I show the value? And energy efficiency is always one of those funny ones where one building probably won't do it, but a collection will. So how did you manage to herd the cats, for want of a better word?
That is a term we use quite often.
Right.
So it actually ties in nicely with how Envision Charlotte was founded. 6 years ago now actually, Jim Rogers, CEO of Duke Energy, came together with a lot of the leadership in Charlotte and said, hey, let's make this city and the uptown buildings 20% more energy efficient over 5 years. Everybody got on board. They went up and pitched it to Bill Clinton and the Clinton Global Initiative, and they said, that's a great idea, go back and do it. They came back, weren't sure how to implement it, did some research, checked out other cities that were doing similar projects, and realized that it would be valuable to have an organization outside of all these other public-private plus organizations, so a not-for-profit that can act in place and help implement this project.
So you're like the independent arbitrator may be the wrong word, but you're...
The independent entity.
You're the person with no axe to grind, you just want to
Exactly.
get the thing done.
Exactly, to our mission statement. We just want a more sustainable, economically resilient, and competitive city. So we really operate in that neutral convener and as a facilitator. So once we were formed, we worked closely with Duke Energy. We realized that in order to achieve a 20% reduction over 5 years, that we needed to target commercial Class A buildings 10,000 square feet or larger. There are 64 buildings that meet that requirement in the uptown. And really with the help of some of our large partners, so to the public-private plus, Duke Energy, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, we were able to get 61 of those buildings to sign on to an energy pledge. And what that consisted of was agreeing to work with us to reduce their energy consumption by 20%, to have a shadow meter installed so that we could pull more granular data, and then to also install a kiosk in the lobby so that we could also touch on the tenant behavior side of things. So we got the 61 buildings to sign on to that. We work closely with UNCC, University of North Carolina, Charlotte. It's a great asset for our city, and we pulled in the engineering students and work closely with them. And what they do, it's called an energy roundtable, but they would go into these buildings, 2 student pairs, and engage with the building operators, analyze the data, and then come back with low cost and no cost recommendations. So that was a really big thing. We weren't saying have these huge capital investments to reduce your energy your energy consumption, but rather there are little behavioral changes that you can do to have a big impact. Great story is one of the buildings, they noticed a peak in their energy consumption around 10 a.m. in the morning. And we were able to track it down to a specific conference room that a CEO, long forgotten, liked to have really cold meetings. So the thermostat was still set to go quite cold in this room at 10 a.m. in the morning. By adjusting it to a more normal band, they saved thousands of dollars each year. So we were able to find a lot of those little low cost, no cost
and the whole thing aggregated up to 26
million.
And so a question to you is like going, so Duke Energy came to you and said, let's do this. And we talked about this as well. You know, what was the environment that made them come to you and propose this? Because a utility all over the world, so this isn't just Duke, everywhere, make money by selling energy, right?
Yeah.
And it's somewhat counterintuitive that you suddenly go, you know, a friend of mine kind of put it, it'd be like going to Coca-Cola and saying, listen, well done this year, but next year you must sell less, and by the way, give your recipe to a bunch of other people. You know,
yeah.
What was the environment that was created that made it, that created an incentive for the utility to come and play?
I think what happened is the reason that we were created by Duke is that we are an outside organization. We don't represent the private sector perspective. We don't represent the public. We are able to operate in that neutral space quite nicely and bring those players to the table together and to facilitate those conversations to really have a successful implementation that is cross-sector, it's collaborative, and it's a value to the city of Charlotte and its residents.
And how important do you think it is to have not necessarily a replica of an entity like yours, but something like that, some sort of independent framework to try and bring all these actors together? Because everything that we're hearing on previous interviews and you know, certainly things that I've written about, that this is not a one person play. You do need to create this coalition. So my question to you, because I'm now rambling a little bit, is how important is your role or having that type of entity that really doesn't have a vested interest, it just wants to do the right thing?
So I think cities could achieve what we've achieved without an Envision Charlotte. I don't think they could have done it at the speed that we've managed to achieve our projects. And I think that is because we are able to not have to deal with procurement. We are able to exist, and we really value our neutral space, and so people trust us a little bit more. There's not that added, why are you doing this? It's very obvious why we're doing this, and we're able to kind of be nimble. So another nice thing is that we've tested out projects. We haven't always succeeded in our work. In our smart waste, we had some issues with sensors on bins, and we've been able to say, okay, we tried it, and we failed, and we can move away from that and be quite nimble and learn from it, but we don't have to go through some of the cumbersome processes that other entities have to. So I think our ability to convene people, to get things done quickly, and to be nimble is really why there's an added value of having this entity sit outside of all these other sectors.
And would it be something that, I mean, you mentioned that you don't necessarily need it, but would your advice be to a city that's going down that route, that if you are going to go down the route, try and create a vehicle like this, because it does speed things up?
Absolutely. I mean, just to speak to the value of our organization, the Obama administration approached us in 2015 and said, hey, you guys have been really successful. You're getting a lot of recognition not only in the US, but globally. Can you take your model and share it with other cities? And we created a conference because we're only a team of 3, so to go to all those cities in the US would be really a challenge. But we said, hey, cities, come to Charlotte, and we'll show you how we've done this, and we'll bring our partners to the table. We have Duke Energy at the table, we have Bank of America, and we have them all talk about how we've been able to collaborate so successfully to get projects implemented quite quickly.
So if we can now fast forward a little bit, because the project you talked about, the energy efficiency with the buildings, that isn't the only one.
Correct.
We've got a little bit of time left on this talk. Can you bring to life some of the other projects that you're working on and the value you're looking to create? Because it's one of those things where, I believe we need to do a better job of articulating the value, not to the city, to the entities that are involved in it, and so on. And I mean, with the energy efficiency projects, you've shared some great numbers, so that's obvious. But what else are you working on?
Sure, we have a lot.
Right.
We are constantly creating more work for ourselves, but one of our successful water projects was in partnership with Itron, actually. We took the model of our Smart Energy Now program and installed smart meters, a pilot network of smart meters in some of the buildings in the uptown to get that more granular data. We developed a platform on Tableau that allowed the buildings to compare themselves across the participating buildings, as well as to understand their data a bit more concretely. And we've had some success there, and we'll be pushing out a white paper to kind of highlight those successes.
What does some success look like?
Well, it's still, we just wrapped it up, so we haven't been able to track the reduction in energy. We don't anticipate that, or water rather, we don't anticipate it will be as drastic as the energy, because water is, the way buildings use water is very kind of systematic, and it's not as, it doesn't peak as much as, say, buildings with energy. But we're waiting to get those numbers and highlight some of the best practices in our white paper. The other 2 pillars that we're developing, waste and air, are definitely ones that we've had a bit more of a challenge kind of sinking our teeth into something that would be impactful, but we're quite excited about it. We're looking to work with the City of Charlotte to think about how we can be more creative and efficient in diverting waste from the landfill. So thinking through how do we take the concept of a circular economy and apply that to our waste stream. And so we're in the nascent stages of that, but we've had some really good initial conversations, so we're extremely excited at that possibility. And then we're also looking to do a greenhouse gas emission reduction strategy. So Charlotte is a committed member of the Global Covenant of Mayors, and part of our requirement of being a part of that network is to do a climate action plan. And so this greenhouse gas strategy will play into that and help the city really look down the horizon at how are we reducing our greenhouse gas emissions across sectors. So this is a great one because it's really collaborative in terms of we need to talk with Duke Energy, and they need to be at the table. Our Charlotte Water team will be at the table. We'll have transportation, we'll have waste, and it's really starting to facilitate a conversation amongst those silos. So we're quite excited about that opportunity.
And in that one in particular, isn't it important to create a framework so that everybody sees the sort of value
Absolutely.
in what we get out? I mean, I know in certain European countries we're creating a framework whereby actually there's a reward for energy efficiency, and in the regulated framework the utility can take that energy efficiency is brought to bear and class it as an asset to the regulator. I mean, how much of that, maybe not in Charlotte, but how much of that do you think also needs to be done in order to help people? Because at the end of the day, a lot of these businesses are there to deliver shareholder value or things like that. You know, do we still need to figure out some of those framework changes we need to make?
I think it's pretty valuable. I think having a framework in place is always helpful. That's partly what I'm hoping that this greenhouse gas emission strategy will do, is that it provides the framework, and then the entities who have already started to have these conversations about working together can continue to have those conversations and you know, recognize that they need to be more collaborative to have bigger impact and to better provide services for our constituencies and whatnot.
And just a final word. the city of Charlotte, has that fed back to you that, what sort of economic value these pilots, and actually forget pilots, some very mature programs have given to the city? I mean, because you said at the top you measure everything. Is there some sort of dollar and cents economic value that you can share with us with the work that's been done up until now?
We don't have an overall dollars and cents, but I think one of the things that we tout a lot with our smart energy programs is that it was a $26 million savings for those participating buildings, which can then be put into other portions of their operations. I think, we can look at how much recognition it has achieved for us, and that ability to use that to attract talent and retain talent is also an economic tool that the city uses quite often. We get a lot of recognition for our work in Charlotte, and I think that really helps drive a lot of the economic kind of arguments for why people should come to Charlotte. I mean,
and the value is really there. And
the value is there. We haven't quantified it yet. I think if we get another person on our team, maybe we can quantify it. But right now,
one more person to write all those white papers.
Exactly.
Emily, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you as well for watching this interview.